With us now, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. Colonel, it's always great to see you. Reuters is now asking the same question that I asked a couple of times today. I want to put this on the screen. Quoting here, U.S. officials declined to speculate about what the object might be, even after a day of observation, raising questions about what kind of object could be so difficult to identify by experienced U.S. pilots and intelligence officials. Any guesses on this, Colonel? Because I think we're not being told everything they know.
Yeah, I almost hope that's the case, because it seems kind of odd to me that we're going to shoot something down. We don't know who it is, whose it was, what it was, whether it was something that could potentially have been harmful if it gets shot down. I mean, I think we would have wanted to know a little bit more about it before we took, that kind of decisive action. But look, I think that, because of all the uproar that happened this week over the delay of shooting down the last one, given that it came over Alaska, and Senator Murkowski, really being upset in Senate hearings this week, I think that they decided they're just going to be, err on the side of shooting it down and then figuring it out later.
I kind of hear you saying this was actually a political kind of a knee-jerk thing rather than a mandatory military thing.
Well, I mean, I honestly, I think if it hadn't been for last week, I doubt they would have shot it down. Maybe they would have redirected any civilian traffic in the area around, and meanwhile they would continue to track it to find out what it was, because I definitely want to know what it was. Although the New York Times is reporting that actually when the device hit the ground, the frozen water there, that it broke apart, implying that it wasn't a balloon of any kind. But again, maybe they're just not telling us everything.
If this is China, sir, my question is it a sign that Xi Jinping is testing us?
Yeah, and that's why I think it is so crucial that we do find out, exactly who owned this, because if this was sent by China, especially right on the heels of all the other stuff before it's even settled down, that's going to raise a whole new level of difficulty for our relationships, and I really hope that that's not what this was.
It's interesting because, speaking of tests, the U.S. this week launched an intercontinental ballistic missile out of California. Are we flexing? Is this something that you think is just a test? It's nothing but a coincidence?
Yeah, we do these kinds of tests a lot, and I would imagine that because it takes a lot of preparation to do a test, you have to have a lot of things in place to make sure you get all the telemetry and all that. So I would imagine that it was just coincidental. But, I think they would highlight it a little bit to make sure that everybody's aware.
Yeah, and I lastly just have to say, I don't have time to play the soundbite here, but last night the president was asked about whether this is concerning and this is kind of a hit to U.S.-China relations. He says, no, it's not a big deal. In fact, he says, I just talked to Xi, and she says, you talked to him? He says, well, no, I didn't really talk to him, but we have talked to him. Your final thoughts on this?
Well, look, I was against just Blinken scuttling his trip, because there are some really important issues that need to be resolved and addressed between the U.S. and China. And if you're not talking at the highest levels, you're not getting anything resolved.
No, Colonel, great information as always. Thank you for coming on, sir. We appreciate it.